Hello. I am making this video not just to read a story, but to tell a story. And the story is about a preschool in Yorktown Heights, New York, called Yorktown Community Nursery School, or YCNS. It's celebrating its 75th year this year. And this is a really special preschool in the community. And it was founded in 1948 by parents. Some of these parents were looking for a cooperative community nursery school experience, and they made it happen. This book was written by one of those founders. His name was Jerrold Beim, and he and his wife helped open the school. All of this information was available on the Yorktown Historical Society website, or through people affiliated with the Yorktown Historical Society. So I wanted to get one of these books by one of the founders to celebrate the 75th opening of the school. All three of my kids have attended this school and we love it there. And I found it was really hard to find these books. A lot of them are outdated, out of print, not in circulation anymore, not available at public libraries because of their age. So that's why I wanted to make this video, to sort of memorialize this story that I think is really special. And I ended up finding it at this place in Nebraska called Mother to Mother Ministry, which sounds like a really special place itself. The purpose of Mother to Mother Ministry is to provide opportunities for women to build intentional friendships across economic and racial barriers. Volunteers learn from one another, each one giving and receiving new insights into self and society. This learning process fosters change in perceptions, attitudes, and in social systems. So I thought that was pretty cool too, and I wanted to share that. All right, so this is called Swimming Hole by Jerrold Beim. Pictures by Lewis Darling. It looks like it was written in or around 1950. The context of which, in the US at the time, swimming pools were being shut down all over the country because they were being desegregated, and people did not like that, did not agree with that. So that was the context for this story, I think. And supposedly it takes place at Junior Lake in Yorktown Heights. All right, Swimming Hole by Jerrold Beim, for Bruce Paul Cole and two Davids and all the gang at the swimming hole. Larry was eating his lunch. "Larry, come on, we're going for a swim," he heard the boys calling from outside. His mother opened the door. "Larry's not finished yet." "Come on in," she said. Larry's friends, Chris, Bob, Walt, and George, waited for him. His mother gave each of them an apple. "Don't go in the water for a while yet," she called as they started off. They had fun on the way to the swimming hole. They jumped over a fire hydrant. They watched furniture being moved into a new house. They looked into the window of Mrs. Thomas's store. Then they ran down the path that led to the swimming hole. "Come on in," other boys called. The boys changed into trunks. They hid their clothes under some bushes and raced for the water. "Last one in is a rotten egg," Bob shouted. There was plenty of room for everyone in the swimming hole. "We'd better go home," Chris said later. They found their clothes under the bushes and put them on. Then they started home. They looked in the store window. They jumped over fire hydrants. "Look, a new boy's moved in there," Larry said. It was very hot the next day, and the boys went swimming again. The new boy was in front of his house when they went by. "Can I go swimming with you?" he asked. "Yes, come on," everyone answered. The new boy's name was Steve. When they reached the swimming hole, they put on their trunks. Steve was not a good swimmer, so he stayed out of the water most of the time. The hot sun beat down on him. When it was time to go home, Larry picked up his clothes. He was surprised at what he saw. "Look at mine too," Bob exclaimed. "Who did that?" "I did it," Steve answered. "You did it? What for?" Larry asked. "Because I don't like you," Steve answered. "I don't want to play with anyone who's colored." That made Larry mad. "I'm as good as you are," he said. You bet he is, Chris added. You go on home, Walt said to Steve. We don't want you here. Larry watched Steve go. He saw that Steve looked red from being out in the sun all afternoon. Say, look at Steve, Larry exclaimed. Why don't we tell him we won't play with anyone that color? The boys looked at Steve and laughed. That's a good idea, they said. They saw Steve on their way to the swimming hole the next day. He was as red as a boiled lobster. His face was red, his arms were red, even his ears were red. Going swimming? Steve asked. Yes, but you're not, Chris answered. We don't want to play with anyone the color you are. Steve held out his hands and arms. Why, that's just a sunburn, he said. I got it yesterday. But the boys ran on without him. They looked back at Steve before they went down the path to the swimming hole. He was standing in front of Mrs. Thomas's store. Steve was staring at himself in the window. The boys played and swam in the water. They saw Steve come down the path, but no one paid any attention to him. After a while, Larry got out of the water and stood on a rock. Then he turned and saw Steve standing beside him. Larry, I won't tie your clothes again, Steve said. It doesn't matter what color people are. Of course it doesn't, Larry answered. Come on in the water. I'll teach you how to swim. They all had a wonderful time together. The end. Other books by Jerrold Beim. 12 O'Clock Whistle, Andy and the School Bus, Country Fireman, The Smallest Boy in the Class, Danny and the Dog Doctor, Country Train.